Welcome to Marketing Brew Weekly, where we dissect the trends and strategies that are surprising and delighting the marketing industry. I'm Jenny Mai Wynn, reporter at Marketing Brew.
I'm Kelsey Sutton, editor.
And I'm Katie Hicks, senior reporter.
Today, we are heating it up in here because Heated Rivalry is all over our feeds, and I'm sure it's all over yours too. And it's got us thinking about how brands are getting involved with this breakout show. Plus, what could romance culture mean for marketers?
Okay, we have to talk. Heated Rivalry is everywhere. Have you guys watched it? How much have you watched?
I've seen all of it.
Our Heated Rivalry correspondent, Katie Hicks. Amazing.
We can always count on Katie to be very up to date in whatever's happening in pop culture.
She's locked in.
Ask me anything about the plot. I'm ready.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen a million TikTok edits, so that feels like it counts.
Yeah, I'm starting watching it tonight.
Perfect.
So, but what I think is so fun, and I wanted to start the episode with, is just talking about how far this show has grown. Mm-hmm. So it kind of rolled out over the holidays, a little sleepy little show acquired from Canada by HBO Max, released, and now it is huge. The week of January 2nd, which was right after the finale, the show was viewed for over 254 million minutes, which is its second most watched week. That's according to Illuminate data reported on by the New York Times. And it's extremely popular among women. Roughly 2/3 of the viewers were women as of the beginning of January, HBO says. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how this kind of went from nothing to everything.
I think just the fact that they were at the two leads, Hudson Williams and Connor Story, were at the Golden Globes on Sunday, and they were presenting, I think it was supporting actress.
Couldn't tell you the category.
I don't remember the category.
Never mind. You just have to see them.
But they were brought out in like this very dramatic way, which was like a low-key, not even low-key, it was like a big Paramount UFC promo. They were like, we're bringing out the UFC fighters to defend them, whatever. They came out. It was this huge thing. They were making a whole bit about like, who here's seen our show? Mm-hmm. Like probably your daughters and your mom and
your
whoever
personal trainer.
And your personal trainer. Everyone's seeing this show. I mean, it was they were not nominated for anything, but the fact that they're so popular right now, I think, is the reason why they were brought to the show and sat very close to the stage, I think, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it was funny at the Golden Globes because they were so obviously there to market the show. And honestly, I was happy for them because they were just there to have a good time. They were there to give out one award and like hang out with people on the red carpet and just be like,
take a shot with Gail.
Literally. Like, they were like, the show has blown up, so we are here to make sure you're still thinking about it, which was just so hilarious when they were, like, up on stage literally making a joke about how, like, all these A-list celebs probably have not seen the show, but it doesn't matter because it is so big, especially amongst the women audience, like Kelsey said, that it doesn't matter if the A-list celebs haven't seen it, all of the regular people have seen it, and that really speaks to how big this particular type of content seems to be getting. And I'm curious whether brands are paying attention, whether that's by being integrated in the show, whether they're doing collabs outside of the show. This particular show just feels like a great case study for what is going on in the romance world.
I mean, we've seen a lot of brand interest in other romance shows before. Like, I mean, Emily in Paris, Nobody Wants This, Bridgerton especially. I feel like that's like the closest parallel. Summer I Turned Pretty, all these shows have gotten huge brand interest after they've blown up and gotten, I would assume, pretty similar audiences to Heated Rivalry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something I think is so interesting here is like, there's been this conversation about like, where did this show come from? We didn't like, it kind of emerged out of nowhere, but it's like, all the data was telling us that this would have been a huge hit. And here's why. First of all, it's a book to series adaptation.
Yep.
Streaming services love this because there's a baked-in audience. If you've read the book, you're probably going to watch the show. Then there's the fact that it is kind of an escapist. I mean, it's about two hockey players who fall in love. They sort of have this like forbidden romance, you know, but it's very escapist and kind of joyful and fun. It's also like very steamy. And I honestly feel like there's kind of a gap in the market right now. Like there's not a lot of, like Bridgerton kind of has that, but there's a lot of Hollywood like is kind of doesn't do that anymore. So I feel like, that opportunity is there. And then of course it's also like a quiet moment like the perfect opportunity for a show to break out, right? Like people are at home, they're looking for something to watch. And then of course it's like, ooh, something different, something new and exciting. And, you know, all the pieces kind of fell together. I'm like, of course people love this show. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. When you say gap in the market, I want to call that out particularly because I think it's an interesting gap, because I actually think there's been interest in romance in general, whether you're looking at books or like people have been like dying for the return of the rom-com. I feel like especially since Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell did Anyone But You. Is that what it was? So I feel like there's this interest in romance, but this particular show, not only is it a gay couple, so that is like a particular piece of representation that is definitely not always out there. It's also just like, it's in your face and it's having fun and it is that escapism, like you mentioned. Like it is just like something that everyone can have a good time with. And it kind of came out around the holidays and it was just like a perfect time for people to just like dig into this new little show. And like you said, book series that just like comes with fans, all of these pieces of the recipe that just like really came together to make it happen.
I think too, it shows that there's like a hunger for like new talent. Like again, the two leads are just like so popular right now. People were like lining up outside of Fallon when I think it was Hudson Williams was on recently. Just fan fervor. I saw people compare it to like One Direction. So, like people are itching for new it guys.
People
like
want a boy band.
They want it so bad.
They're not quite a band, but like two actors will take it.
Yeah, and I just feel like people are looking for that. They want like a new breakout star. They want new shows, not just like reboots and remakes and things like that. Like this is something genuinely new, and like the fact that the leads were like nobodies before this, I think works to the show's favor.
Yeah, I think that's the other gap in the market that they are fulfilling, is that it's not a reboot, it's not a remake. Like people are so sick of that, even though like that is a strategy that streamers and studios are not like shying away from anytime soon, because those are also guaranteed ways to make money. But when you do an original piece like well, people are so excited, and I hope that this shows to studios and streamers that like they can take a chance on something and it might blow up. And this wasn't even that big of a risk because again, it was a book to TV adaptation, so like there was already an audience there,
and it was big on Book Talk too. Like the fact that it was like going viral before it became a show, I think helped probably secure the funding for this show in the first place. But yeah, knowing that it was a big on Book Talk is actually the reason why Quinn, which is an audio erotica company, reached out to the leads and created their own romantasy like audio series with the two leads called Ember and Ice. This is one of the few brand deals that we've seen the two leads do so far, and they said it's like their top performing series to date. So I think the fact that they were paying attention to Book Talk played off for them.
Yeah, it's so smart, and it's so like not only is it paying attention to Book Talk, but it's specifically romantasy. Like it's literally it's already pulling in the successful romance piece of TV and book, and then it's doing it with the additional layer of romantasy, which is another like subgenre that has really blown up on Book Talk with fairies and dragons and all of the fantasy elements. Like Quinn really said, everyone who's obsessive about things, please come listen to this one piece of content.
And I love how fast that brand was kind of prepared to take advantage of it. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Like you said, they're audio erotica. This is like a romance book that was very popular, like, and then people are watching the show and being introduced to these actors and their voices and like all of the fun and excitement that comes from that. So it makes a lot of sense. But I feel like with this thing that's so interesting when there's kind of a from nowhere show like this is how quickly we see brands kind of jump on it. So Quinn jumped on it very quickly, seemed like a huge opportunity for them to grow their brand and introduce themselves to new audiences who maybe were not familiar with the brand before. But I feel like let's talk about some of the other brand stuff that we've seen or kind of not seen, because I feel like while it's on everyone's feet, we're talking about it's kind of all over social. I think that the brand embracing of this has been a little slow.
Yeah, a little
Let's
muted.
talk about it.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting because we came across a Reddit thread of all of the brands that are seen in the show. So integrated, there's like a huge list of them: Adidas, Nike, Under Armour, Gymshark, a ton more that I could just keep going here. But yeah, not a ton that have jumped on the popularity after the show to like continue to build this hype and to do the collabs and to do things like that. And it begs the question to me of like, is this too spicy of a show for brands to get involved in? Like, is that the hesitation? Is there just something that, like, they haven't caught on to the hype yet, despite all of us sitting here and saying that, like, we're seeing the hype? What do you guys think? Is it one of those two things, something else? I don't know.
It might be, but I feel like, I don't know. I was scrolling through both the leads' Instagram pages recently, and like Connor's story has a deal with Chanel Beauty. Like it was hashtag not ad, but like Chanel Beauty and whatever. It was like promoting it. I feel like the beauty industry, especially like where you see a lot of like embrace of like the gay community and you see like male beauty influencers all the time, like that feels like a natural space where they should be reaching out. I mean, both leads have gained 1 million followers in the month. I think it was just in December alone. So like huge reach, huge opportunity for brands to be able to partner with them.
Yeah, that's an interesting area to call out because you're right. Like it makes so much sense for beauty, even luxury brands, fashion brands, to just be like, romance, women are excited about this. Why would you not get involved? I guess if we're playing devil's advocate or giving a little grace to the brands, perhaps there are brands in these categories or other ones that are interested and they just haven't quite rolled out the red carpet for it yet. Maybe they're working on something bigger, especially if it's like an ambassadorship or something like that. Those things do take a little bit more time. And I do think there's something to be said about like how truly brand new these actors are, right? Like I literally had never heard of them before. Not that I know every actor in the world, but like feels like it takes a little bit of time for brands to kind of like maybe vet this talent and see like what's going on. I actually think this is an aside. It would be interesting if they were vetting the talent because I think one of them like got caught up in like a letterbox quote unquote scandal because
my favorite type of scandal.
It's amazing. I can't remember which one of them did it, but one of them
left, actor crime.
Yes, left a review of The Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, actually really deeply personal to me, and did not like the movie, and people were upset that he didn't like the movie. So there is scandal out there to be found if brands are taking the time to vet them.
I think something that's so interesting is like when you talk about like maybe too steamy, I think brands have like a question that they need to kind of ask themselves, which is like, is adult romance something we can ever do or like be adjacent to? So there are a couple examples that we looked at before recording. So David protein bars, it's the gold packaging, the serif font, David.
It's like super simple.
Yes. Yeah. So there was a box of that said, pick your pleasure. And it was a David protein bar. And then next to it was a sex toy brand, Mod, with a product from them. And I was thinking, this feels like very much engaging with all of the themes of the show, very leaning into it.
You got the sport aspect, you got the romance aspect.
And I think the thing that's kind of interesting about that is, how many different ways can you kind of engage with this content? The leads are incredibly handsome and fit, and that's very much part of the appeal, I think, for a lot of the audiences. And if you are a fitness brand or a brand that's kind of adjacent to that, like that feels really natural. But you have to ask, are our protein bars for adults? Like, are we okay with engaging with something that is like not going to be viewed by or like appropriate to be viewed by younger like children, right? And if that brand is like, nope, that's fine, like we're good, versus a brand like CeraVe. And the reason I bring CeraVe up is because they sent one of the leads a branded skincare box, and the reason they sent it was because there was an interview with the lead who he mentioned using CeraVe as part of his skincare routine. And that to me is a really interesting way of kind of engaging with the hype, but there's sort of this level of remove. I'd love to know what you guys think about that, because I thought that was so smart. CeraVe is not saying, okay, we're going to embrace all of this steaminess, but we're kind of here adjacent. We're with this cultural moment. We're engaging with it. We're aware that this brand is being discussed, and we're going to engage in a satisfying way, but like it's not front and center.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Not like diving deep into like the content of the show itself. I agree. I think it was really smart, and I think it was very social of them, which is like where this happened. I think the interview was like obviously like clipped up, put on social, and people were engaging with him saying that he uses a normal ass cleanser like CeraVe, and they were like, "Great, that's us. Let's do this. Let's send him something.
We love being a normal ass cleanser."
Yeah, that's like
New
so
tagline.
brand safe. Yeah. So yeah, I think they were like, this is like kind of funny, and it's said by someone who everyone's obsessed with right now, but like, yeah, we don't have to dive all the way into exactly what's going on in the show, and we still get to be part of the cultural moment. And it's like kind of quick, kind of fast, like doesn't take much effort on the CeraVe team to do that, and like doesn't take much effort to like get it out there and have people see it and talk about it. So why not do something like that? It's kind of like a perfect little like marketing egg handed to you when a hot new actor is talking about your brand.
Mm-hmm. I think one brand that hasn't capitalized on a moment like that, and they could in a way that's very similar to CeraVe, is Canada Dry. They're kind of getting a ton of free marketing from this show, but yet they're not really posting about it. I think Kelsey sent me an article that said, like, is Canada Dry not watching this show? It was
it was from the Toronto Life. Yeah. So in the show, I think one of them drinks a lot of ginger ale, and it's sort of like, oh my gosh, this is it's a Canadian television series. It's about hockey. There's ginger ale. It's like, perfect. Come on. Like, just like you said, Jenna, it's kind of like perfectly teed up on a platter. And so it's like,
send him a package.
Send
him a case.
It's like, it's almost surprising they weren't already integrated into the show, you know? It's like, surely someone on the production studio was like, hello, Canada Dry, would you like to be a part of the show? But maybe not. But even if that wasn't the case with them, I did see that like there are speculations that like there are brands that were reached out to that might have said no, that like didn't want to be integrated into the show itself. So I think there is still like some hesitation out there depending on who you are as a brand, depending on what you stand for, and whether you're a legacy, whether you're like down to do a little bit of risk or not. There's definitely pros and cons to both sides here. The other thing that I want to call out is that while there is risk, I think brands as a whole are definitely like thirsty, for lack of a better word, for like the next big show to be a part of, right? I talked to a bunch of marketers while Stranger Things was recently ending, and someone at Doritos specifically told me that like, yeah, they're on the hunt for like the next big thing. And like, if you can get in on the ground floor of the next big show, that's going to pay off in dividends when it's the final season of Stranger Things and you've been there since the beginning. So could Heated Rivalry be like that next Stranger Things?
There's like 7 books, right? There could be 7 seasons of this.
Exactly.
Hopefully they don't stretch it out over the next like decade, but you know, it could blow up, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think the author actually just announced the 3rd book in the series that's specifically about this couple, and then the rest of the books in the series are about different couples. So there's a lot of different ways we could take this. If you want a new couple, maybe that's coming.
I mean, hey, the 3rd episode of the show is like a spin-off of like a different couple in the series, and people love that episode.
Ooh.
So I think there's potential, even if it's not like the main leads that we're not familiar with. I think people would be itching for a spin-off.
Wait, that's so rare, I feel like. whenever they do like a
little bottle episode
pilot, like spin-off, people are always like, ugh, like this is obviously a like attempt at a spin-off and they don't like it.
It doesn't hurt that they're hot.
Yeah, never hurts. Never
Always
hurts.
helpful. I really think about like when we talk about brand safety, I think the thing that's so interesting is like we have all of the texts, the books have been
the
written,
sacred text,
right? Like the novels have been, you know, they're there. We kind of know what a lot of them are, and you said there's some more that are coming that are, you know, but so brands have an opportunity to kind of look at something and sort of forecast like what is gonna be happening, which I think in some ways can be really helpful, but we also know like creative license. If you're a TV network, you maybe want to do something different. So that's kind of an interesting line to walk. But I wonder, you know, how brands look at, you know, a book to series adaptation, because I'm kind of like, well, you know everything that's going to happen. So like you can kind of use that to decide. Yeah, exactly.
Do your homework.
Pick up the next book.
Yeah. I feel like it's so rare too. Like brands always want to be a part of culture. They can never predict culture, especially fast moving culture, like the next hot actor or what's big on social. But yeah, the fact that there's literally a series of work that you can study is like maybe a rare type of occasion where you can get ahead on what's going to be hot in culture. And I think that's definitely something that brands and marketers should be paying attention to.
And I think from Bridgerton specifically, I mean, that's a show that also had a lot of steamy scenes. And like, I think brands, like we were talking about how there aren't a lot of brands integrated in the show, partially because of the nature of the show, and also just because there may also be brand concerns about like being in the wrong scene. But I think there's so many collabs with that show that you can get involved and you can create products with Bridgerton branding or with Heated Rivalry branding that doesn't put your show potentially, or doesn't put your brand potentially in the show in a unfavorable light according to your brand standards.
Yeah, you have a lot more control when it's outside of the set itself and you're doing a collab. I recently wrote a story about Jenny's Ice Cream doing a collab with Bridgerton. So yeah, it's happening. It's been happening for Bridgerton. It will be happening for this upcoming season of Bridgerton, and it's definitely just like an area that brands love to play in general. But overall, I'm curious what you guys think brands should be thinking about when it comes to their involvement in like the romance world more broadly, because it's like we're talking about Heated Rivalry as a specific show and it's so hot right now, but like in general, romance has really been on the up and up. Book sales in particular have had a meteoric growth rate according to New York Times, and this year they were still growing with a 5% growth rate this year. Continues to be huge on Book Talk, as we have mentioned throughout this. I feel like I can't open up my TikTok and like if I'm interested in like listening or watching videos about books at all, I'm like Colleen Hoover, Emily Henry, like all of these like authors that are like romance authors
And
are
her
so popular.
Adaptation just came out on Netflix, People We Meet on Vacation, which I know we both have watched.
I know. Katie and I really were like, all right, time to lock in for this episode.
That's why I couldn't get a hold of either of you.
Kelsey's like, please do your jobs. We're like, we're doing research. Sorry, don't bother us. But yeah, no, that adaptation just came out like a week or so ago, and it is like super popular on Netflix already. And I believe Emily Henry has like an exclusive deal with Netflix for at least a couple more of her books, which I am a big fan of. So like, it is a huge category, and brands are paying attention for sure. I'm curious what you guys think they should be doing here, or why they should be paying attention to this category as a whole.
I mean, put simply, women buy things, you know? Like if you're reaching like a primarily romance audience, which tends to be women, you're gonna sell stuff if you do brand collabs, if you do like promotion within the show, like people are gonna see it and they're gonna respond if it's done well.
Especially like, I feel like it's so satisfying too when it's like, it's not something that like people think is gonna be really big, but then like a show like Heated Rivalry or any of these romance properties that we're talking about like becomes big because women and gay people, for Heated Rivalry in particular, like when they are fans of something, they ride so hard.
It's a fandom.
Yeah, like stan culture, fandom is such a strong force to be reckoned with. And if you can anticipate that that's coming, like, oh my gosh, what a force to tap into.
I feel like, every interview that I'm doing recently is like marketers talking about the importance of fandom, and like what better way to tap into it than see something like this blow up and then get in on it. And I mean, like to your point earlier about Stranger Things, like that show accumulated a cult like following, but it didn't start out as a big thing. It started out as a small show, and now it became like a huge brand juggernaut. Like so many brands were getting in on it in the last season.
Yeah, Stranger Things is such a funny comp too, because it's not romance at all, but like I just remember it being literally marketed as like the Winona Ryder show because no one knew what it was, and all these child actors and this like truly original plot at the time obviously became a huge thing and had like all of these marketing opportunities that had nothing to do with Winona Ryder. And it's like, all right, what's the next one? Like where's the show that we think is Heated Rivalry right now, but could be anything else coming up here?
Do you remember when The Summer I Turned Pretty came out, and there were so many brands who were posting what team they were on, like which couple it's sort of a love triangle for those who are listening who have not watched it, but like it's, you know, kind of picking, oh, who do I stan, etc. And I feel like that's a voice that we see on social a lot. And I think there are certain brands that kind of have embraced that. I wonder if one of the challenges for Heated Rivalry is that some of the brands that are kind of involved in the show, represented in the show, or are really natural fits, have not really kind of cultivated that voice, that fandom sort of thing. So it's almost like, okay, there's a building of multiple elements here, which is like, what does our voice sound like if we're like fangirling out over something? Should Canada Dry ginger ale fan out over anything? Have they ever historically done? You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of an interesting thing. But romance, again, is like that builds that fan culture. So the brands that already have developed that voice, that sensibility, that their audiences kind of know that they're going to engage in pop culture in this way, like they are really well suited to take advantage of moments like this. And I think brands that have not figured out what that sounds like, or if they say we opt out, we're not doing fan culture, that's not our brand, that's not our voice, there's a little bit of a moment where it's like, there maybe is an opportunity, but you can't move that fast because you'd have to develop an entire new strategy like immediately.
Like you've never been a fan online before, so it would be weird for you to just be like, okay, now I love Heated Rivalry.
Right, exactly.
But at the same time, like when Wicked came out, we saw like dishwasher pods. You know, we saw like Donnie and like like random random brands like jump in trying to get a part of that. So I think you could do something that
just depends on what
aligns with your brand, but also like maybe has Heated Rivalry branding on it.
Yeah.
Well, one of the kind of brands that we talked about like that maybe hasn't tapped into this hype yet is the NHL.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Hello, hockey team, hockey romance. Kelsey, tell us more about, is the NHL doing enough? Should they be doing more?
I think this is a classic example of a sports property getting this huge opportunity to build out fandom from people who have never watched a hockey game in their life before. They watched Heated Rivalry and then they said, now I like hockey.
Yep.
There's such a huge opportunity to build an audience and get attention. And the NHL has seen, increased interest in the last couple of years. And a rep recently, told Sports Illustrated, yes, however people get introduced to hockey, we'll take it. But I do kind of feel like there's an opportunity to really own it. And I don't know if the league is going to do that, but advertisers love sports. If you're a sports league, you want to be open arms, welcoming new fans, women, people who people who watch Heated Rivalry, the Venn diagram of people who watched Heated Rivalry and the people who watch the NHL religiously. I am going to take a wild guess and say, I don't think that that's a circle. I think there's
separate circles.
A very small overlap. And for the people who are in both, this is a perfect opportunity for them. They're like, I love hockey. Why wouldn't I love this show? But I feel like there's an opportunity here. But it's kind of reminds me of when the NFL had the opportunity. Taylor Swift was attending a lot of the games because of her relationship with Travis Kelce. And then there were people who were saying, I've never really watched football before, and I'm engaging in this way, and it's kind of how do you open your arms to this? And I'm really curious to see what the NHL does and if they are going to really take it or if they're going to kind of let that puck go by, not to do a hockey metaphor.
Wow, good pun. I love a good pun. I mean, there's so much opportunity here, and I think the boy aquarium trend that's happening on TikTok, hockey could be on the precipice of a big moment that has nothing to do with hockey, and I think that would be so fun to see the NHL actually do that. So I have one last question for you guys that's quick and fun. What romance content is your romance content of choice, and do you want brands to get involved?
Oh, so mine, I would say I love the New York Times' Modern Love column, and they've already adapted one of a few of the essays into a show. So I feel like whenever there's a viral moment, if there's a viral essay, always an opportunity for a brand to jump in where it makes sense. So I'm okay with it, but I don't need it to be branded on the site
all the time. Yeah.
I'm just a good old fashioned rom-com girly.
Love it.
And I'm cool with brand integrations as long as they're not in your face.
Yeah, I feel like there's always a balance that people want, right? Yeah, I actually really love the Emily Henry books, and they are getting adaptations, so I'm curious to see how brands will continue to get in on that space. My personal favorite is Happy Place, so if anyone listening has a favorite Emily Henry book, please let me know. And if you have any other thoughts on the Heated Rivalry of it all, what brands are doing, romance, or really anything else that you want us to be covering on the show, send us an email at mkbw@morningbrew.com, which you can also find in the show notes. Catch you next week.